And Gresham's law says that basically bad money forces good money out of circulation. So what you should always do is you should always spend your worst form of money, and you should save your best form of money. If you take a look at how we even define money, we define money through the use of different types of monetary aggregates, whether it's M1, M2, M3. There are even broader measures than that. There's a Divisia index. What's mostly used is M2. Milton Friedman in his work has defined money 4 different ways, so there's never been a constant definition, but what's most broadly accepted is M2. M2 is basically, is currency in circulation, the reserves of the bank, and your time deposits and savings deposits. So basically, it's a combination of transaction balances and savings balances. If you take a look at the percentage of the savings balance component of M2, it's about 75 to 80% of M2. So most of M2 is really a savings component. It's not a transaction component. So it separates the function of money as whether it's a form of payment or a store of value, and we use it as both, as measured by the monetary aggregates. Not all the monetary aggregates are just for payments. Some of the monetary aggregates are a store of value. So the question is what definition do you use as a monetary aggregate? The most narrow definition, M1, which almost nobody uses as the monetary aggregate to describe money, that is mostly about payments. Almost everything beyond M1 is the incremental amounts are mostly savings technologies, not spending technologies. So I guess over the next couple of days, you're going to, during this series of videos that you'll be watching, I guess some of the people will probably be talking about alternative cryptocurrencies, other payment systems. I think if you watched carefully the Libra hearings, you'll see that basically why the governments have treated banks as special entities, and I use that's their term, I don't consider anything special about a bank, is because of their role in the payment system. So that's the reason why banks have not had a specific bankruptcy code, is because they serve supposedly the public utility of preserving the payment system, and that's considered a public utility, the payment system. So given the fact that the banks have a role in the preservation of this public utility called the payment system, the circulation of government monopolized and mandated legal tender, the banks are not subject to the same type of market discipline bankruptcy processes that other companies are exposed to the extent that they are, at least by law. Since the beginning, I know that while people have talked about Bitcoin being used, its use case, people kept looking for use cases as a payment system. So I've never been an advocate for Bitcoin as a payment system, because I consider Bitcoin as sound money, and sound money is what you hold, shitty money is what you spend. So you keep applying Gresham's law. You want to hold what expects to go up in value, and what you think is most likely to debase in value is what you don't want to hold. And so bad money is what you want to get rid of, and good money is what you want to hold on. My relationship with good money began when I was 15 years old in 1971, and Nixon abandoned any linkage from the dollar to gold and exited Bretton Woods. And at that point in time, I bought a gold stock, and I've basically been a sound money, hard money person ever since. And until Bitcoin came around, I believed that gold was the best form of money as far as being a store of value. And now I believe Bitcoin, and I have believed since Bitcoin's been out, that Bitcoin is a better form of money for its attributes than gold. So my ranking of quality of money out there is Bitcoin's first, gold's second, and whoever is third is kind of irrelevant because they're all so horrible. But for payments, currently the dollar is still the best form of payment in the world for payment. And I don't think there's an imminent change in the dollar as payment technology, but I do think it's on its decline, and I think in 10 years, the dollar, and maybe sooner, the dollar will not be the dominant form of payment. So I think that technology that attempts to replace the dollar as a payment, I think is until the world rejects the dollar as a payment, until the dollar loses its reserve currency status in the world, I don't think it's likely that anything can come close to competing with the dollar for payment. As the U.S. is engaged in this now war of nationalism, and its trade war with China, and its a verbal war with China, and this effort to realign supply chains, we are kind of like re-entering, an economic Cold War. In an economic Cold War, it could mean that the dollar, to some extent, loses its reserve currency status, because then for the countries that are deemed as enemies of the United States by the U.S. government, would have greater incentives to opt out of this dollar-based global payment system, and work on creating a parallel payment system. And I think that would facilitate and accelerate the process of the de-dollarization of payments, which I certainly support. And essentially, all paper money regimes have always failed. And then, as a consequence of a paper money regime, of a fiat paper money regime failing, we've always gone back to hard money regimes. So I think that this time will be no different, that we will go back to a hard money regime. And there are two choices at this point in time, as gold and Bitcoin. And how I view gold is, gold doesn't have as good attributes as Bitcoin. It's not easily divisible. Storage is more expensive. And the gold mining, governments can interfere more with than with Bitcoin mining. And it's easier to confiscate. So it's more expensive to move around. So you really can't keep your own gold wallet, so as you can keep your own Bitcoin wallet. So for me, Bitcoin is far superior to that of gold. And governments are the majority holders of gold. So the governments can have a significant impact in manipulating the price of gold. And governments regulate access to gold mining, so they can basically have more direct and indirect ability to steal your gold, to invade places that are known as having storage facilities of gold. So it's easy, it's more difficult, and it's easier to trace than Bitcoin is to trace. So not that Bitcoin is impossible to trace, because it isn't, but at least the privacy attributes of Bitcoin are getting better. Privacy attributes of gold are not getting any better. So I think the dominant form of money in which everybody should hold is Bitcoin.